Back with Babe Laufenberg. You know, we've talked a lot about McCarthy calling plays. Yeah. I know fans are probably sick of it, or not. Everybody sees this game differently, Babe. But if you had to speculate, what changes will be most noticeable to Cowboys fans in terms of how this offense looks this season?
I think it's going to be very subtle. Quite honestly, I don't think the Cowboy fan watching the game, at the game, is going to say, ooh. I mean, he's not going to run the wishbone, right? It's just not, and you're not reinventing the wheel. There's only so much you can do with 5 pass receivers in the pattern, right? One thing we have seen through the preseason, looks like the screen game is going to be in, but that's something, you know, you gotta practice that. It's not something you just run twice during practice during a week. You got to spend a lot of time on the screen game, and I'm assuming they'll do that. But I think the changes will be very subtle, and again, I don't think the average fan will notice any difference.
Mike McCarthy, 30-20 as Cowboys head coach, 1-2 in the playoffs, back-to-back 12-win seasons. Yeah. Yet, if they don't make the NFC Championship game this year, he's probably in trouble. That's the narrative. Yeah. I know Sam feels that way. She wants him gone.
No, I don't want him gone. I just think at some point, don't we have to get over the hump of this playoffs, or is like the divisional round, is that what we're happy with?
How hot is the hot seat, Babe? How hot is the hot seat?
I think it's crazy to be talking about it. Not for us to be discussing it because it's out there. But as you mentioned, Deuce, 12-5 in each of the last 2 seasons, won a playoff game last year, actually destroyed Tom Brady and Tampa Bay on the road. So the notion that we need to get rid of Mike McCarthy, I don't get it. But that's kind of where we are. And you talk about a hot seat. It's a pretty big seat, by the way, because he's not a small man. But I don't get it. I think he's done a really good job here, got a lot of help in different ways. They've drafted well. Dan Quinn, obviously, as a defensive coordinator, has done a great job. But, I just don't get it.
But to Sam's point, if there's playoff failure again.
Yeah, what if they don't get past the divisional round?
You mean like the last 30 years?
Jerry's going to feel some pressure to make a move, even though I don't think he will, because I think he likes McCarthy. And if McCarthy can even have another great regular season, that's probably going to be enough.
Yeah.
Veteran wide receiver, Brandin Cooks. Obviously, everyone's hyped up on him. One of the new offensive weapons at Mike McCarthy's disposal. What does Cooks bring to the attack? We've heard CeeDee Lamb talk a lot about him and all the things he's learned, and I'm sure he brings a lot of leadership qualities, you know, off the field as well.
Well, I like what he does on the field, and that's speed, and he still has it. And when you look at an older player, I always look, do they still have their legs? And he's going to be 30 in September, but he does. And the funny thing about that, Sam and Deuce, you've watched him move around the league. He's on his 5th team. He was a first-round pick of the New Orleans Saints, 20th pick in the draft, right? Has these 1,000-yard seasons, and then they trade him. So I always wondered, why is that happening? Now you see him here, and I wonder even more, because he is that good. I'm saying, why would that be happening? Now, in fairness, too, he wasn't getting dealt for 7th-round draft picks. He was traded for a first-rounder, then traded for a first-rounder. But to me, he's been very impressive. And the jump that they're going to take with him as a number 2 receiver from what they had last year, I mean, it's exponentially different.
All right, let's talk about the quarterback. So much fuss made on social media, imagine that, about Dak's interceptions at training camp, which we would agree is silly, right?
Oh, I think so.
But when you were there in Oxnard, what did you observe about the quarterback, that to the extent that you can learn anything by watching a training camp practice?
Right, and I look at Dak, and he had 15 interceptions, tied for the league lead, the whole 9 yards, and but he has not had a history of throwing interceptions. He had 4 as a rookie in 16 games. I mean, it was phenomenal. He took care of the ball when he was at Mississippi State. He took care of the ball in his years previous to last year. So I just look at that. You put in a little asterisk next to it. So that does not concern me. And I'll give you another. When Dak has started over the last 3 years, he has averaged more points, and the Cowboys have averaged more points than any team in the NFL. You know who's second? Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
It's a great stat.
It's a really great stat.
But we got rid of the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, a little bit of pressure on the play caller now, as we said. Yeah.
Babe, the Eagles won the division last year. No team has repeated since 2004. One would think the only team standing in the Cowboys' way is the Eagles. Just how do you see the NFC East playing out?
Well, to your point, nobody's repeated, so you have to almost say, okay, well, Philadelphia's not going to win it, so who is? But they're clearly the favorite as you enter the season. injuries, as we all know, play a big part in what happens once the season starts. But they're talented. They've got the quarterback. I mean, they're just strong everywhere. They can score points. They're great defensive line. Their secondary is good. So, it's going to be a tough out there. I will say, I don't think any team in the history of football has ever had an easier path to the Super Bowl once they got to the playoffs, because they had a Giants team in their first round game, which is, Giants are pretty mediocre. Matter of fact, Giants were outscored last year in the regular season, but they made the playoffs. And then they played a San Francisco team in the NFC Championship that literally didn't have a quarterback when Brock Purdy went out in the first quarter. So, yes, they're the Super Bowl team, and hey, they deserve it, and they were the #1 seed, but they're not invincible.
Babe, finally, you had a chance to spend some time with the football team at Texas El Paso at UTEP. Of course, your son Luke played at UTEP. You lost Luke 4 years ago to leukemia. Just your thoughts on spending some time with that special group of guys out there.
Wow. Well, you use the word special. It's a special time for me to go out. I love the football aspect of it. I get to sit in the coaches' meeting, put my input. I said, now remember, we call it El Paso, not El Reno. So let's get that ball in the air here. But Coach Dana Dimmel, the head coach, he's been fantastic. They still have a player that wears Luke's #2.
Love that.
Laufenberg on the back of the jersey. They give out the Luke Laufenberg Hustle Award after every game to offense, defense, special teams. All the players still have a Luke decal on the back of their helmet. So it was truly an honor for me to get to talk to the team. And as the years have passed, these guys haven't played with Luke, didn't know Luke when he was there. So I tell them the story, and most gratifying, a lot of them come up to me after, and they just say, man, I wish I got to know him, or wish I got to play with him. And I say, I do too.
Well, I'm grateful I did get to know him and talk to him. Live like Luke. Hashtag live like Luke.
And let me just tell our audience very quickly, Deuce, you've been tremendous. You really have in your supporting the event, the fundraiser that we do, and texts that you send me from time to time. Some of them aimed at me, and they're not very pleasant. But the ones that concern Luke are very gratifying.
Mike never told me about the coffee event this year, Babe. He didn't want me there, I guess.
I try to stay classy, Luke.
Thank you, though.
And Babe, thanks for being here. Babe Laufenberg with us on Free for All.